In this lesson, we'll learn about the principle of secondary action. So here we have a simple animation of a cartoony dinosaur character running really fast. So this is what I would consider to be the main or primary action. So basically him running at an incredibly fast rate. So what I want to do is incorporate another action to support this main action. This will be our secondary action. Now, secondary action is not to be confused with follow-through, one of the other 12 principles of animation. Follow-through, again, means that separate parts of the body will basically continue moving after the character has stopped. So if you haven't already, watch that lesson in this course on follow-through and overlapping action. But as you watch this animation, think about, say, a person walking down the street. And that person begins to, say, whistle or make other types of facial expressions, okay? That whistling would be the secondary action to the main action of him walking, okay? It's very important to remember as we move through this lesson that secondary actions, they emphasize instead of take away from the main action. So by him having his head, say, whip back around to look back at whatever he's running from, that's going to reinforce and really breathe a whole nother level of life into this animation. I'm going to go ahead and stop the animation, and really quickly, let's have a look over here at the layers section of our timeline view, just so we can see how this character is broken down. So I have the head on one layer, it's basically one exposure all the way down our timeline here. I have the legs, basically 4 or 5 drawings of these little swished lines that have been repeated throughout the timeline, and then I'll have the body on its own layer, and it's basically the same setup as the legs to kind of show the tail whipping there. So what I want to go ahead and do is we're going to draw a couple of additional drawings for the head. Again, I want to have the head kind of whip back around to look back at whatever it is he's running from. So I'm selecting the second cell and the last cell for the head layer. I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard to clear those out. And then I want to go ahead and make a new drawing layer. We'll turn on onion skinning. Okay, mainly onion skinning for the head layer right there. And I want to go ahead and use this blue swatch right here where I basically have lowered the alpha. I'll grab my brush tool and we're going to draw just a couple of additional drawings. I'm going to kind of sketch out the additional head poses. Okay, so I want to have kind of a 3/4 head pose. And then we're going to have an intermediary drawing where the character's head is kind of looking down. And then I'm going to take these 2 drawings and we're going to duplicate them and flip them, having them point the other way. And that'll allow us to have a little animation here where the character's head is whipping back around. Now, I'm not going to take you through adding all the clean line work and color. I would recommend, in that case, to check out our course on Introduction to Character Design in Toon Boom Harmony, where I basically show you a lot of the different tools that you would need to put down your line work and your color, show you how to use the brush tool, pencil tool, selection tool, the cutter tool, and so forth. Okay, as well as some of your different layer modes down here as well. Okay, so this would be kind of our 3/4 view right here. Okay. And then I want to have kind of an intermediary drawing where the head is in the middle of this animation of whipping back around. Now, if you've watched our lesson on arcs in this course, again, another one of the 12 principles of animation, I want to have kind of a nice arcing motion to this head so that it feels a little bit more fluid and less rigid. So on this head pose right here, I like to have the head pointing down so that it's not looking directly at us, the viewer. And this will just make everything feel a little bit more natural, a little bit more fluid. So I'm just sketching these in. Again, we're going to pause the video and I'll add in nice clean line work and color. When we come back, I'll show you how we can flip one of the heads. And if you watch the lesson on arcs, you'll know that I kind of like to show just a little bit of a hint of the previous drawing as well as the one that will follow on this particular pose. It's kind of a nice way to get a little bit of motion blur in there. And of course it depends on the style of animation you're kind of going for, but it's something I like to do. Okay, so we've basically drawn, or sketched out rather, a couple of additional head poses. Okay, I'm going to be duplicating these and flipping them in addition to duplicating this head pose where he's looking straight ahead and flipping it, and that'll give us a nice whipping around motion. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and we'll be right back with our clean line work and color. Okay, we're back, and I've basically taken that 3/4 head pose in addition to that intermediary head pose, and I've added some line work and color. And then I took that 3/4 head pose that we have right here, I duplicated it, and I flipped it. Okay, so you can start to see how we're going to get that head turning around. So I'll go ahead and walk through with you taking our final head pose that we need, duplicating it, and flipping it, which will be this first pose that we have right here where he's looking straight ahead. So I'm going to take my selection tool right here, and for the head, I want to go ahead and select all of that line work right there. Okay, and it's very easy to select because I've basically flattened all that line work. Again, check out our Introduction to Character Design course for more on that. So I'm going to go ahead, having it selected, I'm going to hit Control-C. Now, as a side note, I want to mention that I have my line work on a line art mode right here. It's basically, think of it as a layer for your layer. Okay, so that's what I have that on. And then I have my color art on this color art mode right here. So I like keeping them separate. In the event that I need to make adjustments to one or the other, I'm not affecting one or the other. Okay. All right, so having copied it, I'll come over here to our 5th frame, and I'll hit Control-V to paste it. And of course, I need to flip it. So I'll come over here to our Tool Properties under Operations. We'll hit this button right here, and that'll flip it. And then using my Selection tool, I'll go ahead and just move that head where it needs to be. It's right there. All right, very good. Going back to that first head pose, I want to switch to my color art mode. And again, you don't have to separate your color art and your line art, but again, it's something I prefer to do. So just selecting all of my color art there. All right, I'll hit Control-C to copy, come over here to our 5th frame, our 5th cell, making sure I'm still on my color art mode, and hit Control-V to paste that in. Let's go ahead and try and copy that one more time. It doesn't look like I hit the correct keyboard shortcut. Okay, let's try that again. So Control-C and then Control-V. There we go. And of course, I'll go ahead and flip that, and we'll move that where it needs to be. All right, very nice. So now we have our nice kind of whipping motion there of our character's head. So this is where I want to adjust the timing to kind of complete this animation. I don't want this secondary action of the head whipping back to really happen immediately. I want to give the viewer a couple of beats to really absorb the main action, which is of him, of course, running. So I'm going to go ahead and select the 2nd frame and the 5th frame, so those cells right there, holding Shift. And let's go ahead and come down a ways, maybe around frame 30 or so. And then I'll come out here to the last cell, and I'll extend the exposure of our head pose for when it's turned all the way back around, just hitting F5 on our keyboard. All right, now let's go ahead and click play. And then the head whips back around. Okay, so this head whipping back around becomes a supportive component. Again, secondary action is meant to emphasize rather than take attention away from the main action, which is of him running. So as his head whips back around, I don't believe that it takes any attention away from him running. In fact, it reinforces and it helps breathe more life into the animation. Okay, it helps reinforce the story that's kind of unfolding with the action that he's performing here of running really fast. Okay, so let's go ahead now and kind of end this lesson here, and I want to show you some other examples of what secondary action can be. So I've just hidden the visibility of those layers. I've got a layer right here titled Examples, so turn on the visibility for that, and of course make sure you're on the first frame right there. I have it on one cell. And so a character shaking their hands while doing the bathroom dance, okay? In this sentence, where would the secondary action basically be taking place, okay? If you can think of this as an animation, I'll kind of give you a moment as I select our letter tool over here. And so it would be shaking their hands, okay? I'm going to go ahead and highlight that in blue. So the main action would be them doing some crazy dance. They have to go to the bathroom really, really bad. And the shaking of the hands would be kind of a supportive component to emphasize the main action. Okay? Here we have another one. A character looks at his watch while walking. This is very much the same as what I was talking about at the beginning of this lesson. If you've got a character walking, they begin to whistle or make other facial gestures. Okay, that becomes a supportive component. It emphasizes what the character is doing, which is walking. And then finally, a character scratches the corner of his eye while talking. This is a more kind of subtle action, okay? But again, it's a secondary action to the main action, which is the character talking. So these are just some other things to consider, some other examples that you can visualize for what secondary action can be. So I'll leave you with this. Secondary action supports the character's main action, and it adds personality, just gives it more life, okay? It emphasizes instead of taking attention away from the main action. Okay, so this has been an example of secondary action. Hopefully you're able to take what we've done here and incorporate secondary action into your own animations. And I would also like to recommend just study life, study people, study animals. That's how you'll really be able to pick up on secondary action and be able to incorporate it into your own animations.